This is a story about the supernatural.
Shelterwood is the land of dreams. If you want to find something here, you will.
This is a story of disappearances and homecomings.
I know your whole world has been turned upside down, but listen, I was really hoping I could convince you not to go back out there.
Investigating the disappearance of my sister, Sadie DeRosso.
I've never heard of anyone coming back, ever.
Subscribe now to Shelterwood, a suburban gothic, to follow this story.
Hey everyone, Shelby here to ask for your help to make Bloody FM even better. If you have a moment, please take our listener survey so we can learn what you like, what you don't like, and what else you're listening to. You can find the survey at bit.ly/bloodysurvey. It takes less than 5 minutes and it's really easy because, hey, you're just telling us about yourself. So if you've got a couple minutes, please head to bit.ly/bloodysurvey and click the link. It'll really help make Bloody FM and all our shows better. One last time, that's bit.ly/bloodysurvey. Thank you so much.
Do you know what time it is? It's time to go radio rental. Radio Rental is a podcast with a collection of the scariest stories you've ever heard, all told by real people. Ooh, terrifying. Radio Rental is available now. Listen for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your stupid podcasts.
Hello and welcome to Scare You to Sleep. I'm your host, Shelby Novak, and I'm here to read you some horrifying happenings sent in by your fellow listeners. Before we begin, I wanted to mention that author M.C. Schmidt, known for his stories on this show, like Madison and the Sea, as well as The Undersea Waltz, both I know some of you have raved about those stories. Well, he has a new novel out. It's called Mad as Birds, and here is the synopsis. Moving to an intentional community is supposed to be a fresh start for Milo. No internet or television, complete isolation from the outside world. He doesn't love the idea of moving, but his brother has been in charge since their parents' accident, and Milo knows better than to question him. Besides, it's not like there's anything to stay for, not after the recent incident that got him expelled from school and made him a social pariah. Milo is intrigued when he learns their new home was once a retreat for famous artists. He's a talented painter himself, so when a spectral woman begins to show up whenever he's at his easel, he initially takes her for a muse. Seduced by the quality of the work they're making, he doesn't notice the control she's gaining over him. By the time he learns her true intentions, it might be too late for him to overpower her. But if he can't find a way soon, she's going to force him to slaughter every resident of the community. Mad as Birds is a contemporary gothic horror novel with a unique reimagining of supernatural possession. Please go pick up your own copy or e-copy of Mad as Birds. MC sent me my own copy a while back, and it's a fantastic read. I'll have a link for you in the show notes. And one more quick housekeeping note. I know, I'm so sorry. I mentioned at the end of last week's episode, but I wanted to put it in the front because I know some of you don't. You skip the rambles. Again, perfectly fine. Love you either way. Don't mind. Just wanted to let everyone know, though, give everyone a chance to hear that Patreon has been emailing me to suggest I raise my tier prices, and I won't be raising all of them, but my $1 tier, which is ad-free episodes, only ad-free episodes, it only generates a few cents after Patreon and taxes get their cut. I can see why Patreon is pushing because they like me, we make basically no money off of this tier. So I will be parting with that tier. But they have promised that anyone who subscribes before I raise the tier prices or get rid of that tier will be grandfathered in. So if you've ever considered that lowest tier option for ad-free episodes, you will have until the end of August. Starting September 1st, the $1 tier will be gone. My apologies for this news, as I've had that tier for so long, but unfortunately it's just not feasible anymore. I will, however, always have the show for free with ads, and of course, those grandfathered in will be able to stay at the $1 tier for as long as they wish. And I do think sometimes it's hard to tell on Patreon exactly how much is going to the creator after Patreon gets their cut, and after taxes, the tax man gets his cut. So that's a little breakdown for you. Yeah, I only get a few cents from those $1 tiers, and they have been emailing. It's not just me either. I know a few other creators have been kind of getting the push. I explained also in the end of my ramble last week that whenever I try to sell the individual episodes, by the way, you can go buy individual episodes if you don't want a new subscription, but there's maybe an episode that you really love falling asleep to. I do the same with certain ASMR videos I will listen to hundreds of times. So if there's one that maybe just you really love and you just want that one, I do sell the episodes individually. But I will say I tried to sell them for $1, and Patreon does not allow me to go under $3. So I don't know what that means for the future, maybe of Patreon, where they're going, but I will say that there are some changes going on. I know they're upping their own percentages for new creators who join Patreon. So I'm just kind of, following along, and I have tried to keep things as low as possible. But, unfortunately, in this economy, things going on. And I appreciate your patience, and I am so apologetic. I kept that $1 tier for as long as I could, but again, it's just not feasible. And the individual episodes I have tried to sell for only $1, and they just won't. They literally, I physically cannot do it. Is physical the right term for that? I manually cannot do it. The lowest I can go, they let me go, is $3. So that is what they are, is $3. And so thank you. Okay, I try not to do lengthy intros anymore. I try to keep everything for the end, but I felt like both of those were things I really wanted everyone to hear. So let's get on with the scares. These first few stories are from Tayana. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And I think, in fact, I know you're really gonna like these. I was around 4 or 5 years old when this first story takes place. At the time, me and my family lived on a dead-end street in a very close community. We were especially close with 2 of our neighbors, one being a family with a boy my older brother's age and an elderly couple who, for this story, we'll call Mr. and Mrs. Pat, who were very devout Catholics. As my mother recalls, it was a gorgeous day in early spring. The air was a perfect warm, the type that fills you with happiness after a long, cold winter, and the scent of fresh lily of the valley was everywhere, since the ones my mother had planted around the front of our house had just begun to bloom. It was still relatively early in the morning when my mother got the call that Mr. Pat was having a medical emergency and that they didn't think he would make it. Seeing as my brothers were a bit older, yet still under 10, they were sent to the other family's house to play with their son in a collective hope to keep the kids distracted when paramedics arrived. Despite this, my mother, not wanting to place too much stress on the other family since my brothers could be quite wild, took me with her to our elderly neighbor's house. They had a large trampoline outside, which was where my mother had left me while she went inside with the elderly couple's grandchild, who lived and took care of them. Of course, I don't remember what happened, but I guess I just spent the time tiring myself out. My mother told me she had gone inside to see how Mr. Pat was, and eventually to say her goodbyes. Not wanting to see him slowly pass away, she and the grandchild left Mr. and Mrs. Pat to say their goodbyes and to be together in his final moments. Back out on the front porch, My mother and the grandchild spoke for a good 5 minutes, watching me still jumping around until I eventually threw myself down and stared up at the sky, twirling a few flowers I picked up in my hands. My mother says I abruptly dropped the flowers and just started waving and giggling up at the sky. Completely confused, my mom asked, "Who are you waving to?" She said I had the biggest smile on my face and said in a happy voice, "Mr. Pat." Thinking I was just playing or imagining things, she said, "Darling, Mr. Pat's inside with Mrs. Pat." I got a bit mad, probably from confusion, as I said, "No, Mr. Pat's right there," pointing straight up into the sky, ignoring my mom, who continued to insist he was inside. I went back to waving and smiling and said to the sky, "Bye-bye, Mr. Pat." Not a moment later, the grandchild, who was now sharing a look of worry and confusion with my mother, got a call from Mrs. Pat saying that Mr. Pat had just flatlined and had sadly passed away. Later, still in disbelief at the events, my mother talked with the grandchild, who confirmed not only did they hear me saying goodbye to Mr. Pat as well, but when the paramedics came, they too confirmed Mr. Pat's time of death being the same time I had waved up at the sky and pointed him out to my mother, who obviously could not see him. Telling this in later years, my mom affectionately says he couldn't help saying goodbye to his favorite little girl one last time, and that they always say children have a special ability to see angels that adults have lost. I love that story. It's so beautiful. And we have an additional story from Tayana. Again, so hoping that is how you pronounce your name. If not, I apologize. And this story is very eerie. Oh, you guys are gonna love this one. My next story didn't happen to me. Instead, it happened to my father's friend, who we'll call Mr. John, when he was a young man in the 1970s while doing carpentry work at a house built in the early 1820s. The house was huge and belonged to the same family for generations, and thus still had the very old pre-Victorian vibes. Mr. John was genuinely an extremely kind man, so I do not doubt this story one bit. Enough with my rambling. Here is Mr. John's story, told through his own eyes. When I was around 30, I had one good deal after the other, since I had built myself a good reputation at being a reliable and skilled carpenter. Seeing as it was the early 70s, a lot of rich folk were contracting me to give their homes an updated, modern look. One day, this old, snobby-sounding lady called me and asked me to fix up the second floor of her house. To make a long story short, I did think it was strange I would only be working on the second floor, but I forgot about it when she mentioned the pay. So we set a date for 2 days later as our consultation. Soon enough, 2 days had passed, and there I was, standing on the steps of this huge old Victorian-looking house. I was a bit confused as the lady, snobby-looking as I said, led me inside. In my mind, I was going in to renovate and give it a good slap of paint from what the lady had said, so shouldn't I be doing the whole house to make it uniformed? She made me aware that they weren't looking for a renovation like I was thinking, and that the house simply needed a few rooms and floors fixed due to the sheer age and wear of the house. She informed me that her family would be away for a wedding, and that she would prefer me to stay at the house. I quickly agreed, since the house was a long ways away from pretty much everything, so it would be very easy to run up my gas as I went home and came back each day. Plus, I come from the Appalachian Mountains, so I was kind of excited to see how these rich folk lived. When I arrived a week later with all my tools and the needed material, the lady reaffirmed that she and her family would be gone for the next 2 weeks, and that I was the sole person home aside from their 3 Great Pyrenees. I immediately got to work, as it was heavily implied that I was to be done by the time they returned. I won't bore you with the details, but I spent most of my time on the second floor, since that was the location I was paid to repair. Soon, it became clear to me that this job was a bit stranger than I expected. The rest of the house was perfectly fine, meaning the flooring was sound, the walls were strong, and so on. But the second floor was completely different. It was worn in a few areas, like these places had seen more foot traffic. These paths were at the edge of rooms or under large paintings and windows, something I'd never seen before as a carpenter. Still, I didn't really pay it mind, since I was only there for the money. The first day or so was fine, and me and the dogs got along quite well. I took up a guest room on the first floor so I wouldn't be sleeping around the dusty wood and nails, and to let the dogs out. But around 3 or 4 days in, I began hearing footsteps above me. I, again, didn't pay it mind, since not only was it an old house, but I assumed it was the dogs, going through the house and into the bedrooms, looking for their owners. That was until one night, while I was sleeping, I heard a loud crashing sound, a type of sound that immediately jolts you into an upright position, skipping the groggy, confused stage of waking up. I sat still for a few minutes, wondering if I would suddenly hear the pounding of paws running away from the source of the bang, or maybe even a whine outside the door. But nothing came. Being tired from working, I decided that whatever had happened was a chore for the next morning. I went back to bed quite quickly and soon sunk into a state of REM. That was, as you'd expected, short-lived when another loud crash came. I expected the dogs to start barking. Even if they had done it, at least one of them should have been started. But still, absolute silence. I was getting worried about the dogs themselves at this point, so I decided sleep could wait. Seeing as the house was big, it took me a while to find the staircase. I made my way up and was greeted by one of those fuzzy pups at the top of the stairs, so I followed the blur of a white tail wagging in my face. We eventually got to the source of the crash, and 2 vases were smashed to the ground. My first thought was, holy shit, what is that lady gonna say when I explain to her that 2 vases randomly shattered? I quickly cleaned them up and made sure to check that every room was closed so that the dogs wouldn't be able to knock any more down. The next day was as usual, and I was making good progress as I didn't have any distractions and had a large, beautiful house to myself. That night, I made sure that every room was closed and that the dogs were on the first floor with me. And sure enough, there was no crashing sound to wake me up. The next 5 days were peaceful, the nights quiet as I had hoped. On the night 3 days before the lady and her family were to be coming home, there was an especially terrible thunderstorm. Once again, a loud crash woke me up, but this time, it was coming from outside. The thunder seemed to shake the whole house as it roared. Still, I was making my way to go back to sleep when I hear the bedroom door creak open. I thought this was strange, as I always made a habit of closing my room's door, but figured the thunder knocked the door loose and one of the dogs had simply opened it. I went out of the room, opening the door further, and was surprised to find all 3 dogs lying around on the floor. I asked them if they had opened the door and why they weren't checking out the thunder like normal dogs, but they seemed more disturbed by my presence than the sounds. Abandoning the sleeping lumps, I closed the door again and went back to bed. I got in a few more minutes of sleep before I was awoken by the creak of my bedroom door again. I thought I was just tired and had accidentally slept through another loud round of thunder. I closed my eyes, choosing to ignore the door this time. But after a few moments, I got this strange feeling like I was being watched. I quickly rolled over, sticking my hand out, expecting to be greeted by the dog's soft fur, but was confused when I saw a streak of white rush out of the room. At the time, I thought it was one of the dogs. In my haze, my brain seemed to skip over the fact the white blur was up too high for a Great Pyrenees to stand, and that they didn't seem too concerned about the noise to begin with, so they would have no reason to come in and run back out. I went back to sleep. The feeling of being watched didn't come back to me until the next morning, but I shrugged it off and still made the assumption it was the dog. 2 weeks had gone by the time I was done with the entire second floor. The lady and her family came back, and after thanking me for doing such a good job and watching their beloved dogs for them, something I wasn't paid for, I told them of the broken vases, and they shrugged it off without any explanation, but made no move to suggest I had to reimburse them. So I gratefully accepted my paycheck and made my way home. The first couple of days back home were normal. I went on doing jobs and spending time with my family. One night, as I was lying in bed with my wife, I heard a loud crashing noise from upstairs. Our bedroom was on the first floor, while our kids were on the second. Thankfully, that night they were staying at their grandparents', so it was just me and my wife. I ignored the crashing, as I thought something in one of the kids' rooms had just fallen, and I could see our dogs sleeping on the floor by our bed, just like the night at the lady's house. A second crash came. To calm my wife, I got up and made my way to the stairs. That's when I saw this young girl at the top of the steps. She was the classic ghost child. Her skin was the color of a corpse, being void of any semblance of color or blush. She had long, wavy white hair that was probably blonde when she was living, that came down to her hips. Her dress had frills, and despite being a ghost, she looked very well kept, almost as if she were a real girl. The girl immediately ran from me, and that's when I realized I had seen her before. It brought me back to the bad thunderstorm and the flash of white that left my room. After that day, it became common to hear crashes around the house when it was just one person home. The dogs didn't seem to bark, something I thought was odd because they barked at any and everything, especially people. Soon, my kids came back from their grandparents' house. Things were quiet until one night, my daughter comes to our room crying that a girl was watching her. She said that from the corner of her room, she saw a girl her age staring at her. When she moved to sit up, the girl would dash out of the room and disappear. At this point, I was pissed. I was okay with being annoyed by this little girl ghost, but it crossed the line at scaring my children. The very next day, I called up the snobby lady. Somehow, the lady said she had neglected to tell me they had a resident ghost. They liked to call her Cousin Alice. She was a member of their family that had died from tuberculosis when she was around 10, back in the 1860s. Of course, I grew ever more upset as the lady went on to say she was generally well behaved, but she was deathly afraid to be alone. The lady explained whenever Alice thought she was alone, she would throw vases or objects that could break in order to get someone's attention. Once someone came to check on her, she would know she wasn't the only person in the house, and that's why it was important to always respond. But Alice was also scared of being seen for one reason or another, so she would run away if someone saw her. The reason she had kept breaking things despite knowing people were home was because her bedroom was located on the second floor, and she'd always seemed too afraid to leave it. The reason she had during the thunderstorm, the lady had suggested, was because she was more afraid of the loud crashing outside and the rumble through the house than she was of leaving the safety of the second floor. Despite my anger at not being told all this important information prior to taking the job, I got really sad as I thought about Alice. She'd been dead for around 100 years and was still a little girl who missed her family, was afraid of thunderstorms, and was afraid to be alone. I asked the lady why she had followed me, though, despite the fact that her family had returned home. The lady said Cousin Alice did that quite frequently when she thought she would be alone again, and only followed people she could trust. The lady also apologized, saying that she had grown so used to Cousin Alice and her shenanigans that she often forgot to warn people beforehand. Plus, there was normally always someone sleeping or cleaning on the second floor to keep her company. To get the little girl to leave, all I had to do was tell her to go home, and that she wasn't welcome anymore. After that, I hung up the phone and made arrangements for my kids to stay at their grandparents' again. Around 2 days later, as I sat in bed waiting for the girl, the expected crashing sound came from our house's second floor. This time, I was careful to sneak around the corner in my house and stand by the wall, hoping the girl wouldn't see me. Despite my empathy for Alice, I was growing worried she might hurt my kids, seeing as she was already brave enough to stare at my daughter, even though she'd only been at our house for around 3 weeks. I saw the little girl, and she saw me as well. But before she could run, I yelled up at her, "Hey, Cousin Alice, I know you're scared, but you can't stay here. You're not welcomed anymore. You have to go home. Go on back to your cousins and your family." I watched as a worried look came over the girl, and I don't know whether she ran from me or just faded out, but I went back to bed. From that point on, no more crashing, no more crying daughter. Mr. John said that he still thinks about little Alice, even though it's been around 50 years since that happened. But hopefully, they can find a way to help her see her real family again. Also, he explained to me later that he wasn't the only person home. There were actually a few maids with him, but they lived further away on the property, and he only saw them the day he was leaving, probably to ensure he didn't steal anything, LOL. I still have many questions about this story myself, such as why Cousin Alice followed Mr. John home despite what the lady had told him. Personally, if I were a ghost, I would stay with my family over some random man, but maybe she was just scared and found him comforting. Still, it's been a long time since Mr. John lived through this and told me, so I'm sure some details got lost over the 50 years. I absolutely love Mr. John's story. I mean, it's incredible. It seems like something out of a movie. I feel like it would make a really sweet children's book about a ghost or something, or like a children's movie. And I hope Alice found her way home at some point. Like home, the great beyond home, not just being scared in that old house.
This is a story about the supernatural.
Shelterwood is the land of dreams. If you want to find something here, you will.
This is a story of disappearances and homecomings.
I know your whole world has been turned upside down, but listen, I was really hoping I could convince you not to go back out there.
Investigating the disappearance of my sister, Sadie DeRosso.
I've never heard of anyone coming back, ever.
Subscribe now to Shelterwood, a Suburban Gothic, to follow this story.
So this next story is hilarious. It was sent in by Jennifer, and it starts supernatural. And, well, it's a story about a little utility error and a lot of drugs. This is, Jennifer titled it True Story, 28 days / hours / minutes later. For a little bit of context, I go into a physical rehabilitation hospital once every 3 months for a week-long ketamine infusion to manage chronic pain and mental health issues. Because of said ketamine, my memories of this event are a little, read lot, hazy, but I'll recount it as best as I can. In late 2020, during the height of my city's draconian COVID-19 lockdown, I was keeping up with my quarterly infusions. During this period, we had to get PCR tests done prior to admission, as well as daily RAT tests. One of the staff members, not a nurse though, had tested positive that day. So the entire ward went into quarantine mode. We weren't allowed to leave our rooms, All of the nurses got geared up in full hospital PPE, and we had to sit around twiddling our thumbs as the RAT results trickled in. Luckily, no patients or staff on shift had tested positive. One of the fun things about ketamine on the dosages that I'm on when I'm in the hospital is that I don't really sleep. I just kind of fall unconscious. 1 minute I'm awake with the lights on, setting up to listen to a podcast, and the next moment I'm awake again, and it's morning, and I'm 5 or 6 episodes deep into the podcast. I don't even rouse when they come to take my blood pressure every 4 hours. Mid-admission, I had a night that was an exception. I couldn't doze off, so the nurses gave me some extra sedation. I put my CPAP mask on, turned the lights off, and tried desperately to get a little bit of sleep. Surprisingly, I succeeded. However, at some point that night, I woke up unable to breathe. Half asleep, I pulled the CPAP mask off my face and buzzed for the nurse. Nothing happened. The little light on the nurse's call button didn't light up. I fumbled around for the lights, and again, nothing happened. A little panicked, I swung my legs out of bed, threw on a t-shirt, and slowly hobbled out of my room in the dark, wheeling the IV pump with me. The halls were dark and silent, save for the red floor lights and the slow hiss of the infusion pump at my side. The nurse's station was dark, and I couldn't see too far ahead. No other patients seemed to have roused. A hospital at night can be a creepy place, and having dozed off listening to a horror podcast while hooked up to an IV that has a habit of causing hallucinations didn't make this easier on me. I backed up towards my room, eyes flicking left and right as I tried to make out any movements in the low light. I fumbled for my phone, which I had forgotten to plug in before passing out. With shaky fingers, I hit the entry for my partner's number in my contacts, and they picked up within a couple rings. Concern was evident in their voice, getting a phone call at an ungodly hour of the morning, and trying to keep my voice down, I asked them to check the news. They were confused, pressed me for my reasons, but I just urged them on. Nothing out of the ordinary. Now, even more concerned, they pressed me again for answers. "I think I'm in a zombie apocalypse," I whispered frantically. Much to my chagrin, they laughed, the relief evident in their voice. "Dear, that's impossible. The power probably dropped out, and I'm sure the ketamine isn't doing you any favors." "You don't understand. It's too quiet. I haven't seen a single soul since I woke up, and I can't hear anyone moving about. You know hospitals are never quiet." IV pole in one hand, phone pressed to my ear with the other, I headed back towards my door and peeked around the corner. Still no sound other than my infusion pump, and still no sign of movement. I shuffled out of my room, trying not to get tangled up in my IV line, making feeble attempts to keep quiet in such a silent environment. In hindsight, me stumbling around like that was likely to have drawn attention to me pretty quickly, but I was in a heightened state of panic at this point. At the end of the ward corridor, I saw a shadow disappear around the corner. They were moving with a steady, confident gait. Couldn't be a zombie moving like that, I thought. Still, I kept quiet, well, as quiet as I could, and continued my slow shuffle towards the end of the corridor. I curtly ended the call with my partner and turned on the flashlight on my phone before peeping around the corner. The nurse standing at the door to the medication room gasped in shock, dropping her keys, and demanded to know what on earth I was doing, shining a torch in her face. "I thought the zombies had come, like in 28 Days Later or The Walking Dead." She let out a world-weary sigh and turned to face me properly. "The power is out, and the backup generator hasn't properly kicked in yet. Just head back to bed. Nothing's wrong. You probably won't even remember this in the morning." And that, my friends, is how I faced the impending zombie apocalypse while dosed up on ketamine, wearing just my boxers and a worn t-shirt. Joke's on her, I did remember it in the morning, and it remains one of the most bizarre and horrifying experiences of my life. I don't believe in the possibility of a zombie apocalypse, but it was damn convincing. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for that entry. I know it wasn't technically supernatural, but I do include like real life stories on here sometimes that are horrifying, and I just cannot imagine. I can't imagine being on ketamine. The lights in the hospital are out. I mean, you literally must have felt like you woke up in 28 Days Later or The Walking Dead. And hilarious. I hope you've recovered from the zombie apocalypse. Okay, here we go. Our last story of the evening. This is a doozy, you guys. This was sent in by Kat. Hey, Shelby. I found your podcast very recently after listening to the episodes you created for the Creepy podcast. I need you to know that the rat bagger episode literally made me jump in fright, which is no easy feat, so hats off to you. You are extremely talented at what you do. I'm so grateful for your content and all the hard work you put in. I could gush for a while about how much I love the show, but I want to respect your time and get to the point. Thank you so much, Kat. By the way, the rat bagger is one of my favorites because on this show, I try not to do anything jump scary because it's for sleep, obviously. But for creepy, I was like, oh, I don't have to adhere to the sleep rules that I've set for myself. And so with the rat bagger, I really wanted to do something that was genuinely frightening to the audience. And to hear that it was effective for you makes me so, so happy. Yeah, if anyone hasn't heard that one, go to the Creepy podcast. Look up the several episodes I wrote. I don't remember what line it came in. I don't think it's called Rat Bagger. Is it called? I don't remember what it's something grocery store related is the title. I don't remember now. But Rat Bagger is also one of my favorite names for a character I've ever come up with. Okay, anyway, sorry. I've never gotten to talk about the Rat Bagger episode. No one ever asked me about the Rat Bagger. And so thank you, Kat. Okay, on to your story because this is very scary. I want to make something clear as I share my story. I respect religion, faith, spiritual practices, etc. I am a spiritual person myself. I mean no offense or ill will as I describe my past experience. Any negativity I disclose is in regards to a very specific group, which will remain nameless. It was February 2019. I had been invited to attend an evening soccer game with my close friend, Christian. We, along with many in our social circle, had met as teenagers at a church in 2010. After realizing the church was operating more like a cult, the majority of us dispersed and remained friends, many renouncing religion altogether. Christian and I were among those who had quit religion. The irony of his name is not lost on him, an atheist. Our experiences with that group were strange and routinely supernatural. Pentecostal Christianity can go from 0 to speaking in tongues and casting out demons in a matter of seconds. We were indoctrinated into a world of radicalism that unsurprisingly crumbled into abuses of power and inappropriate behavior from leadership. I'm being intentionally vague for safety. This organization is still up and running, and branches of it have recently been in the news. My reason for sharing this is to highlight that we were no strangers to inexplicable happenings. I remained open. Christian, however, was jaded by the experience. Christian and I remained close and bonded over our time in that group. Something I had kept from him all those years of friendship was that I harbored feelings for him. We had dated other people, moved out of state, moved back, gone on our own adventures. I had a kid with someone. A lot can happen in 9 years. Through it all, we were there for one another. I knew he didn't feel the same for me as I did for him. A friend had told me as much, and I never questioned it, so I never brought it up. I figured it would just be one of those things that would hopefully fade in time, though nearly a decade passing still hadn't managed to extinguish that fire in my stomach every time he walked in a room. He was talented, successful, beautiful, and kind. I, on the other hand, was always messily stumbling toward the finish line of young adult milestones. I had survived a whole lot of craziness before falling into the church/cult, and ever since leaving, I was a bit of a wild one. But I was getting it together. I had a 2-year-old, I was managing a popular business in our area, I was freshly single and ready for anything. I was eager to embrace my queerness and be more open about my pronouns and attractions. Christian knew as much and was supportive. He had recently gotten out of an abusive relationship and vowed to be single for life. We were safe for each other. The soccer game we were attending was in the city, so I agreed to drive to Christian's apartment, and then he would drive us to the game. His apartment was in a row of old duplexes that faced a busy road. I parked behind the house, and we went to the game. I'm not really into sports, and I'm definitely not into standing around for hours in an open stadium at night in the middle of winter, but I wanted to spend time with Christian and was always down for new experiences. As a single parent, it was rare for me to have nights out, so I wasn't picky. We drove back to his place after the game, and he parked in the back with the rest of the residents' vehicles. I believe it was around 11 p.m. At the time, I was a smoker, so we walked around to the front of the house where I lit up and we chatted for a while. It was freezing cold, and the wind from the car zooming past whipped my face. There was just a small paved pathway, maybe 6 feet long, between the front door of his apartment and the sidewalk that bordered the road. I knew I needed to leave soon so Christian could get some work done. It wasn't unusual for him to pull all-nighters at his computer, so we decided to call it a night. I lived about 20 minutes away, so I was going to use his restroom before heading out. What happened next still chills me to this day. The following events happened in a matter of seconds. Christian walked through the front door of the apartment, and I followed. As I was the last in, I had my hand on the doorknob and moved to close it. I had just closed the door and still had my hand on it when we heard 3 loud, guttural barks from what sounded like the sidewalk. These were not any barks. They sounded like a Great Dane. I've never heard another dog have such a deep bark. At the same time, we heard heavy footsteps barreling toward the front door and a woman's voice screaming, "Help! There's a dog out here! Please help!" She was shrieking and pounding on the door desperately, almost in a frenzy. My hand was still on the door, and I could feel every pound vibrating my body. Christian was standing next to me in front of a window that had full view of the step up to the front door. Normally, I am the type of person to always lend a hand when someone is in need, but something about this made my blood run cold. Everything in my body was telling me to keep my hand on the doorknob in case this stranger tried to push her way in. "Please, please, come help me, please," she pleaded in a voice that I can only describe as wrong. It sounded forced, unnatural. It sounded like someone trying to sound like a person. Christian had been looking out the window, and his face had an expression I have never seen before, as though he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Still holding the door, I got on my tiptoes to look out the peephole, wanting to see what he was seeing. Immediately, there was silence. No sound of footsteps retreating, no whimpers, nothing. Like a mute button was pushed. Christian stared at me and said, "There's no one there." I was looking out the peephole and he was right. Not a soul. I was shaking with fear, but I had to see where the woman went. I opened the door and looked up and down the dark road. Nothing. He walked with me around the perimeter of the house. Nothing. We went back in the house, both of us extremely shaken up. I asked, "What did you see? What did she look like?" He replied, wide-eyed, "No, you don't understand. There was no one there. No one there the whole time." His words made my gut fill with ice, and I tried to keep my composure. But I felt them. I placed my hand on the front door, just as I had less than a minute ago. I felt the door shake when she pounded it. I heard the dog. It sounded like it came from the sidewalk. I heard her coming towards the house. There's nowhere she could have gone that fast. I was reeling, and I know Christian was too. He had built a new life grounded in logic, analysis, an explanation for everything. A life without gods or demons or fae or glitches in the Matrix. He had no way to make sense of what just happened. I asked if it was okay with him if I stayed a bit longer. I was too afraid to go to the back of the house where my car was parked. "Of course," he said. He put his hands around my shoulders and led me to the couch in his bedroom. "I'm sorry," I quavered, embarrassed. "I'm just not ready to be alone right now." "Me neither. Stay the night if you need to. I don't want you going out if whatever that was is still out there." It wasn't unusual for me to crash on Christian's living room couch. I had done it a couple times before. His roommate didn't seem to mind. So I resolved to text my ex, who was at my place watching our 2-year-old, and let him know that I was unable to access my car because someone dangerous was outside and he needed to stay with our son until I felt safe enough to drive back. Christian and I were sitting sort of huddled together on the edge of the couch cushions. He was holding me, rubbing my back in a soothing way he had never done before. He was whispering that it was okay, that everything would be okay. I had been staring at my hands, ghost white and trembling. I turned to look at Christian's face, and without a word, he pressed his lips to mine. He kissed me tentatively, then deeply as I leaned in. My brain felt like it was short-circuiting. I had dreamed of kissing this man for 9 years, and it was happening now? I was in shock, and everything felt like it was buzzing. There was too much bad and good happening at the same time. It felt impossible. Like if you just escaped a burning building and someone outside hands you a check for $1 million. I pulled away, looking at him in the eyes, searching them for something I wasn't ready to admit. "Are you sure you want this?" I asked, breathless. "I've wanted this for years," he replied, then leaned back in, pressing my face to his. We were like that for a while, kissing, then pausing to talk, to explain how we've longed for each other, believing it was not possible, then kissing again. After some time, Christian did have to get that work on his computer done. He had a deadline. I stayed there in his room all night, watching his face aglow in the glare of the monitor. He turned the lights off so I could sleep, but that was not in the cards for me. My body would not stop shaking. My mind would not stop racing. Every cell in me was vibrating, telling me something was wrong, very wrong. The whole next day, I felt like I wasn't in my body, like I was in that space between sleeping and waking. I know I went to work. I know I agreed to see Christian that night so we could talk. There was this sick feeling in the pit of my stomach that something wasn't right, as though none of this was real and I would wake up back in Christian's car, heading back to his place after the game. But I didn't. We talked that night and started a relationship. We got engaged, got married, had a kid. He became stepdad to my first child. Through blessings and hardships, we built a life together. 6 years. We are lovers with the foundation of being best friends. There's nothing quite like it. But there's still something that nags at me. Something that gives me goosebumps to this day. When we heard that thing, it wanted us to open the door. And when the sound abruptly stopped, when I didn't see a corporeal form standing on the step, we did open the door to investigate. We were out in the dark searching for it, But what if that was part of its plan? A hunting method? What if we brought it back with us like a parasite? Or there was a thin place outside the door and I just slipped through the veil? What if that terrible feeling I had on Christian's couch was onto something? That sense of innate wrongness? Or maybe it was just a defense mechanism. My brain afraid to accept that my dreams could actually come true, that I could have nice things. I'm not so sure, because when I searched Christian's eyes that night, I saw something. I felt something. Someone else. Thank you so much for your story, Kat. I want to say that what happened to you, first of all, was horrifying. The reveal that nothing had been standing there the whole time. I can't even begin to imagine what that was. If you have theories, please comment down below or put it on Instagram. I don't know. We don't have like a meeting place where we all meet up at, but comment on whatever platform you're listening to this on, if you can, because I would love to know your theories on what happened that night to Kat and Christian. I will say, though, I don't believe Christian was possessed by anything, which I think is what you were suggesting. And I think you do just have a defense mechanism of your brain not wanting to accept that nice things come true and that you deserve nice things. I think that's what it is, because sometimes our brains do that. And we have these anxieties of everything's always gone wrong, so they can't go right. Because when they start to go right, the other shoe always drops. It's something that I've been having to unlearn as well. That I would get this anxiety. I still do. I get this anxiety when things are going too well. Because that means something in my life is about to mess up those things. Or those things are just going to be taken from me in some way. And I think that's what you're feeling. And I think you should just enjoy your lovely relationship with Christian, and I'm so happy for you both. I love love so much, so I loved that romantic happy ending, and I think you shouldn't sweat that Christian is possessed by the lady with the dog. I think that might have just, maybe it was like a residual haunting thing. Maybe it happened a long time ago, and it was just sort of like a snapshot of something in time. I don't know. What do you all think? I know what I think right now, and I think it is time to let you go. And thank you to everyone who submitted for this episode. I have a lot of submissions, by the way, sitting in my inbox, so I'm slowly getting through them. I haven't even read all of them yet. I honestly got lucky with these 3, and wham bam, thank you ma'am. I loved all 3 of them right off the bat. So if you submitted, then I will get to you reading yours, or I will consider it for next episode. Sorry, not all of them make them onto the show. Some of them are they just don't fit, or I have my reasons. I have my reasons why I pick what I pick. But if you like the show, please follow it on social media. Oh, before I forget, remember to get a copy of MC Schmidt's book, Mad as Birds. It's really, really fun, and fun is a weird way to describe it, but it's a really great book, and highly recommend it for like your midsummer read. And also, please remember the Patreon changes by the end of August. The $1 tier will be going gently into that good night. So if you'd like to follow the show on social media, you can follow at scareyoutosleep. You can follow me personally at Shelby B. Novak. And again, if you'd like ad-free episodes, you can go to patreon.com/scareyoutosleep. And you may have noticed, those of you who hear the ads, I have a few sponsors recently. It's been a little while, so I'm very excited. So you'll hear me reading some ads. And if you are interested in those products, please remember to use my offer code. I am not telling you to get anything you do not want or need. But if you happen to be like, that is a thing I want or need, then please consider using my offer code for that product or service, because I would really appreciate it, and it helps me keep the lights on around here. So thank you so much for those of you who do remember to do that. I really I appreciate it more than you will ever know. And I know that a lot of podcasts and YouTubers, we tend to get some of the same sponsors because that's just how the world goes round at the moment. But I really appreciate when you consider using my offer code, since there are so many people who, they have their offer codes as well. So I super, super appreciate when you remember mine. And yeah, let's see, what else? Oh, I made cinnamon bread this week. I made a cinnamon swirl bread. Oh, Clara is trilling. I don't know if you can hear her. I hope you can. She has this mouse that I've had since I got her. We got it as a little gift in a little gift bag on her first trip to the vet, which is still her same vet. And she's had it ever since, and she loves it. She carries it around. She'll bring it to me. She brings it to my bedroom every night because it lives in the living room. We call him Mr. Mouse. I've mentioned him on the show before. I actually have a theory that she thinks it's my favorite mouse because she doesn't really play with it. She has a ton of other toys she plays with. Mr. Mouse, though, every night when I go to bed, I lay in bed and she looks around the corner at me like a creeper to make sure I am in fact going to bed. And she goes and gets Mr. Mouse and she trills and brings it into my bedroom and leaves it various places in my bedroom and then goes on about her night. And it's almost like she's like, hey, you forgot your mouse. So yeah, I have my theory that it's actually she thinks it's my favorite mouse and I call it her favorite mouse. Anyway, I hope the microphone picked that up. I don't think it did though. I made cinnamon bread this week, cinnamon swirl bread. I used Sally's Baking Addiction recipe. It's not, I think she has a quick bread version. It's not the quick bread. It is the slow bread. Quick bread is something like a banana bread, like something you don't have to let rise with yeast. But I guess they don't call it slow bread, but regular bread. It's the one with yeast, but it's so good. It's like stupidly good. I don't make it very often because then I end up eating a loaf of bread in a week, and I don't know if you're supposed to do that. And it's not like it's got sugar and stuff. It's a sweet bread, and it makes the best French toast you've ever had. If you ever want to impress someone, like someone who's slept over, I highly recommend pre-making this bread and using it to make French toast. Oh my God. If someone did that for me with this bread, I would marry them, probably. But in the meantime, I do it for myself. So it pairs really nicely with like berries and things too. Oh, and cream cheese. Someone on Instagram, I don't remember who you are, who said it, but you're a goddamn genius. Someone on Instagram was like, oh, I bet that'd be so good with like a cream cheese frosting drizzled on it. And I bet you're right. I still haven't done it, but I bet you're right. Oh man, I want to try. Actually, tomorrow I think I'm just going to put like straight up cream cheese. I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell. It's going to be Saturday. It's going to be great. So that was what I did this week. I also had, we announced, that's right. Oh, that was another thing I was going to put up top. I forgot. We officially announced on bloodydisgusting.com that the Toxic Avenger podcast is starting to come out. The first episode dropped on the 22nd, and I am one of the writers and one of the actors. I did not act in my own. I think I mentioned that. I gave myself a little cameo because I was told to, but I am in one of the other episodes, the one that will, so they're also going to be concurrent on different shows feeds. Like it's got its own feed. Look for the Toxic Avenger podcast. But I will be putting the one that I wrote on my feed. So you will definitely hear it. And like Mayfair Watcher Society, Kale wrote one. So it's going to be on the Mayfair feed as well. And that's the one I acted in, was in the Mayfair one. It's about a butcher shop. So if you go to the Toxic Avenger actual feed, if you want to listen to it there, it's going to be the butcher shop one where I play a part on that one. And mine is called the Miss Meat training video. And it comes out, it's not the last one to come out, it's the second to last. It's the penultimate episode. And it comes out, I think, August 11th. You'll see. It'll show up on this feed, so you'll see it. I'm so excited. It's nothing. I don't think I've ever written, like, I try to include some levity in my stories, but this is like straight up gross out comedy. So I'm really interested to see what everyone thinks of that, of my gross out comedy writing style. Look at me, I'm stretching my wings into different genres, into different things. So that is one of my projects that I'm very excited about, that I've been working on. And you probably heard my voice around the network reading the Toxic Avenger ads. I am all Toxic Avenger all the time right now. So excited about that. And I think that's all for tonight. I'm starting to get mush mouth, as I've explained many times. So yeah, join the Patreon. I'm going to come out with Ted the Caver Part 2 this, either if not this weekend, then this early next week. Excited to get back into Ted the Caver. And yeah, I will see you on the flip side, beautiful. Where did that come from? I don't know. It's late. I'm getting mush mouth. I'm going to go. You're going to go. And we're going to go. And you're going to drink your water. And you're going to go get some sleep. Sweet dreams.
This is a story about the supernatural.
Shelterwood is the land of dreams. If you want to find something here, you will.
This is a story of disappearances and homecomings.
I know your whole world has been turned upside down, but listen, I was really hoping I could convince you not to go back out there.
Investigating the disappearance of my sister, Sadie DeRosso.
I've never heard of anyone coming back, ever.
Subscribe now to Shelterwood, a Suburban Gothic, to follow this story.
Hello, Toxic Avenger fans. You know what that theme song means. It's time for another exclusive audio clip from The Toxic Avenger in theaters August 29th. This time, we bring you the sounds of someone cooking breakfast and listening to the news. Enjoy.
From New Chemistry High School for varsity tournament season. Coach Stanwyck, what can we expect from the Crimson Beaks this year?
New Chem is gonna nuke them.
Wouldn't want to be the Kennedy Cougars this Saturday, huh?
Man, fuck the Cougars. Fuck the Cougars!
Oh my god. So switching gears, we have a special exclusive...
Okay, that's great. Do you want to be part of a winning team? Want to stand up against the forces of evil, like the Kennedy Cougars and beyond? Join the fight at I'mWithToxie.com and then see The Toxic Avenger in theaters on August 29th. That's I'mWithToxie, TOXIE.com. Hello, Toxic Avenger fans. You know what that theme song means. It's time for another exclusive audio clip from The Toxic Avenger in theaters August 29th. This time, we bring you the sounds of someone cooking breakfast and listening to the news. Enjoy.
From New Chemistry High School for varsity tournament season. Coach Stanwyck, what can we expect from the Crimson Beaks this year?
New Chem is gonna nuke them.
Wouldn't want to be the Kennedy Cougars this Saturday, huh?
Man, fuck the Cougars. Fuck the Cougars!
Oh my god. So switching gears, we have a special exclusive...
Okay, that's great. Do you want to be part of a winning team? Want to stand up against the forces of evil, like the Kennedy Cougars and beyond? Join the fight at I'mWithToxie.com and then see The Toxic Avenger in theaters on August 29th. That's I'mWithToxie, TOXIE.com.